Hello, welcome to the video on light painting. Light painting is a very old technique, but it's been revived recently because it's so fun to do with digital cameras. You get an immediate feedback because you can take the photograph and do your experimentation, look at the LCD, make some adjustments, and then shoot again. And that way you can zero in on the right exposure, which is tough to do with light painting. That's the most difficult thing. Light painting is the common term used for a single source of light to create a much bigger and more expansive and dramatic light source. So using a tiny little flashlight like this one will allow you to move it around and create a softbox look, an umbrella look, or a lot of other different lighting characteristics that a little point source light wouldn't do in a short exposure. And that's why light painting requires very long exposures, because you have to open up the shutter and then you have to move the light during the exposure to achieve what it is that you want. And this takes a while. 20 seconds is about the minimum exposure that I experiment with, and sometimes I'll go as long as a minute, but most digital cameras overheat when you go more than a minute. So let's start with about 20 or 30 seconds and see how that goes. Any light source will do, but some, like these battery-operated flashlights, are easy to handle and work with for both types of light painting. This is the source that I recommend beginning with. First, let's describe the two major kinds of light painting and then see what they share and how they differ. The first approach that we're going to discuss is called still subject light painting. And that's where the subject is static, it doesn't move at all, and the light moves to create the lighting effect. Okay, the shutter is now open and I'm creating the rim light. That's the most important thing for me. I'm going to hit the face a little bit, then I'm going to create the glow in the background. A little more in the face. Okay, and let's see what we have. That looks pretty good. So there you have it. Once we import that into Photoshop, I just have to set the color balance a little bit, but it's pretty much a finished shot. You can see that you can do some really great lighting with a small flashlight. It's so much faster when you're working with small objects than setting up light stands and softboxes and spotlights. I can just whip through a bunch of light painting shots of small objects, spending about a minute on each one. These examples show a before and after transition using a small light source and then using that small light source to create a big soft result. Another approach to still subject light painting is to create pools of light by aiming the flashlight in different areas of the scene to make it appear as if many spotlights were used in the photo. This approach is very useful to add interest and drama to shots of large spaces, both inside and outdoors at night. When properly done, there will be no trace of the moving light source in the shot. The photographer should wear dark clothes and take precautions to never let the camera see the light source. If the camera sees the light, streaking will occur. Now, what if you want streaking? That technique is called motion light painting. And this example dates back to 1930 when it was used to document an industrial process. You see those little squiggly lines? That's a light that was taped onto someone's hand while they were doing an industrial operation. So this motion light painting is a lot of fun. There's no limit to the types of color or number of lights that can be used for this approach. It's recommended that you do this in a very large dark room or outdoors at night. A small flashlight is the easiest lamp to use, but other common lights include sparklers and matches. Now this technique is best done with an assistant, so the photographer can direct the action, do reshoots, and change the exposure. As you can see from these examples, some planning and artistic thought is required to get a good result. These are somewhat complicated. You know, it's not unusual to do 20 takes or more to get something that you're really satisfied with. Let's cover some basic exposure tips. You'll need to have your camera on a tripod because you'll be using very long exposures. I recommend beginning with a low ISO of 200. You must use manual mode and manual focus for your shots. Focus on a point that you want to be sharpest. You can do this by having someone hold a light in that place so you can focus on it. Start with an exposure of f/22 at 20 seconds. When you begin shooting, review each shot on your LCD and look for distracting highlights. Look for mistakes in the handling of your light and look for other elements that you can correct. Make each shot a step toward refining your final image. I repeat, it may take many shots to get something you're satisfied with. For the purpose of this assignment, you will be required to submit 10 photos in total. Shots 1 through 4 include 2 shots using the still subject light painting technique to create photos of small objects that appear to have been lit by a large light source. You may use your close-up filters to make the objects big in the frame. Submit before and after shots of this object. Now those are the first 4 shots. Shots 5 through 8 include producing 2 finished photos using the still subject light painting technique to create photos that show pools of light in wide-angle scenes. These can be done inside or outdoors. There should be no evidence of streaking in these shots. Be very careful not to let the flashlight strike the camera lens, because that's what causes the streaking. As before, do a before and after shot. Now those are shots 5 through 8. Now the last 2 photos will be using the motion lighting technique, which is really the most fun. Produce 2 shots using a long exposure and moving the light to create streaks of an artistic nature. These are shots 9 and 10. Any or all of these photographs can be done indoors or outdoors. Good luck.